Hello, Seattle. It is great to be here to get to share with you a little sneak peek of some content I've got coming up. This is a little bit I put together called Conquering Iron Viz 2023. I want to enable you all to have what I had, the opportunity to go to Vegas live on stage and be claimed as a data viz champion. But it didn't start there for me. So 3 years ago, I was making dashboards like this about Donald Trump, about what he was doing with his time. Not quite the award-winning content that I later went on to make. But I want to talk you through how I went from making these simpler dashboards to going on to the conference itself. So a little bit about me. I'm a consultant with the Information Lab. I've been a Tableau user for about 8 years now. I do a lot of coding as well with SQL, R, and Python. In previous roles, I've been around many different industries. So I was at World Remit, which was a fintech company. I did broadcast media at the BBC. I was at Cerulli, which is a market research firm. And even before I started doing data, I started off life as a stockbroker at Killick & Co. But now I'm a consultant with the Information Lab. I just want to give 2 seconds for them that we are a Tableau partner as well. We are here really to help support you in learning Tableau and getting up to speed and enabling you to get the best from that tool. So we offer a lot of free training. On a Thursday, we also have a YouTube channel for on-demand usage. We also do like advanced in-person trainings or data analyst engagements where you can get analyst help from people like me or other members of our team for say a week, or it could be longer to help you in any kind of issues you're having with Tableau. And also now we've started up in New York. So I want to give a shout out to our New York team that just started up. I went over and trained them about a month or so ago, and they're a really good bunch. So really keen to help them out. So do shout if you need any support in Tableau in any way. But this is where I started. So in 2019, I had been using Tableau for about 5 years by my job. I was looking around on Tableau Public, and you can see these really amazing data visualizations, really engaging pieces of work. They really want to just dive in and learn a bit more about these different topics. Really fun and interesting. And then I reflected back on my work and I was like, what? I've been using the tool for like 5 years. Why can't I make stuff like that? And after I thought, maybe don't beat yourself up a bit, Will, about this, I thought maybe how could I go and make what they make? It really got me thinking about how I was going to do this. So what I learned was the answer is Tableau community projects. So Tableau community projects are initiatives run by members of the community that help skill you up in different parts of data visualization and data skills. So for example, prepping data is all about preparing data sets, or you can look at diversity in data, which is about doing good with data to try and highlight the diversity and discrepancy in our world. Or you can do more fun things like Sports Viz Sunday and share how your team is really winning in their current sports fixtures. But for me, I started with Makeover Monday. So this is a community project about remaking charts, giving them a makeover. Okay, so they will give you a chart that they've seen out there in the wild, give you the data set and just say, how would you go away and improve this chart? So it really focuses on best practices. And the nice thing about these is that they're quite quick to build with the data set. So this Trump dashboard was my first installment for Makeover Monday. We were looking at Trump's executive time. I put this together. I thought, hey, this isn't bad. The benefit of these community projects is you don't work alone. You know, so you are there alongside many other people in the community putting out their different data visualizations. Now, you may see that like comparison is the thief of joy. But in this case, it actually gives you accelerated opportunities to learn here. So I'd done my dashboard about Trump. Makeover Monday, I picked some of their favorites out from the community, and I wanted to sort of share with you the sort of technique that I went through. So I could see my piece of work, but I could also see work from, say, Diego here, who's talking about Trump's executive time. You can see has a much more simpler kind of view on the same data set. So just having a bar chart, but it's really effective how you can see that executive time in red almost encapsulates the entire image that we're showing here. So the title and all the text fill up that blank space, and real nice effective use of color. So it's very clear what's going on here. Next up, a look at mirrors. You have a similar view of where we're using color to really highlight the executive time that how Trump is spending his time. But something new here was that we have this sort of calendar format, which was something I hadn't thought of before when I came to this data set. As you see, I just made it as a line chart. I didn't really think too much about it, but this calendar I think is really nice because you can see those times when more time was spent on executive time. And then lastly, I come to Brian's, which is this sort of dark background, kind of draws you in because it's a bit different from the others. You can also see how that executive time is highlighted in white, really springs off the page, which is really quite nice. So from doing this project, I've put down my piece of work, but I've immediately got several other different ideas of what I could do in future visualizations that I wouldn't have if I was just working on my own. Which really helped me learn more. So I kept going with the project. I did more and more. So we started off with these data set about Trump, which is a topic I wasn't too familiar with, but then we started dropping into things like rhino poaching and spacewalks and squirrels and CO2 crises. So lots of different data sets that I was having to get a grip with, and then understanding how I'm going to tell that story to anybody else. So over time, I really saw going through these different data sets, picking up and using different things I had learned from people in the community really helped me improve my skills. And it got very good quite quickly because I was learning part of everybody else. But then came a point, so I effectively call this hitting a wall with Makeover Monday, which happened to me. There was a topic, there was a data set that I didn't really think I could do much more with. I felt I had got the most out of this community project. So it made me think, it made me step back for a moment and think about what I was doing with this project, what I enjoyed about it, where did I want to go and grow next. So I stopped. I realized that the data set we had to work with, I didn't really have much interest in it. And I didn't really think I could add much to what was already there. So I stepped back and started thinking, well, maybe I could go and visualize data sets that I was interested in. So I started off just picking up different data sets about running. So I really enjoy running. I'm part of a running club out in London. And here we had one of these. So we have this race called a beer mile, which is part of my running club back when I was there. And I'll show you a quick summary of what this event is. It's a combination of drinking and running. So you can see the competitors here drinking, and then they'll start running as part of this race. So they will do 4 laps of this track and drink 4 beers. So they will have covered a mile and have drunken 4 beers in total. This was a race I had to take on as part of one of my running club sports day events. This was a very challenging race for me. When I did this race, it took about 11 minutes for me, and I considered myself a reasonably good runner at that stage, maybe not so much a good drinker now, but this was really staggering to me when I went and found the actual results. So I've seen actually quite professional athletes now in this race. So I put this data together as a visualization. So we could see here, the record holder was Corey Bellman, did it in nearly 4.5 minutes, which is staggering when you consider that the world record is only 50 seconds, faster without drinking the beer. This is, for me, this was a really staggering concept having done this event. So I wanted to share this data with everyone else. We also saw the best female time in 6 minutes over 8, which is really staggering considering the drinking and the running event. And if you wanted to go out there and get in the top 1,000 results, 7 minutes is the time you've got to go out there and beat. So, which was really fun. It was just something different I wanted to share, something new about running, and something that I was just plainly interested in. Next, I just started talking about subject I was passionate about. So from my days at university, I went to a university called Loughborough. It's a very sporty university. Um, I didn't do sports, but I was drawn to sports in the end because I realized if I didn't do it, I didn't have any friends. So in year two, I took up the sport of triathlon, which is where I found this inspiration from this athlete called Chrissy Wellington, who was a phenomenal athlete in the sport of triathlon. She won the majority of her races, no doubt. So this visualization I put together was demonstrating those differences between her first, where she finished compared to her second place. So you can see here that Chrissy finished the race in just under 2 hours, 20 minutes ahead of the next competitor, which is amazing. So it was really like had a lot of passion for the sport, and Chrissy really embodied what the sport was about. Like for example, here when Chrissy had a flat tire in the World Championships of Ironman, the competitor says she's still going to win. She just won't win by as much now. And yes, she did go on to win that race as well. But really amazing, and I really love this sort of motivational quote at the end of, I'm not motivated by the number of wins. I'm not motivated by the number of times. I'm motivated by the need to get the very best out of myself. So really held a lot of passion for me in terms of this sport and in terms of this event, and really inspired me to go on to take on the Ironman challenge, which I did in 2015, which was really fun. So I put that together just to show my passion for this sport. Go on to this one. Lastly, was about showing a bit of things just I just plain enjoyed. I enjoy having a bit of fun here and there and trying to express that in my work. So I put together this visualization about chess. It's not your typical kind of chess data set. So it would look at, say, the lifetime expectancy of chess, but it would put you in the chess piece's position. So it starts off with this scenario of one of these chess commanders needs you, and you're going to start this enrollment. So I'll click it again. So you get this enrollment questionnaire to pick who you're going to be in this chess game. I'm not going to let you just pick whoever you want to be. You can't just pick, I'm going to be a queen, I'm going to be the most powerful character. But you have this personality questionnaire you go through. After submitting your answers, you can just skip it all, and you will get one of the worst characters. So you will be a Black Pawn, you will be in the Queen's Gambit final, and you will be on the losing team as well if you've watched the Netflix series. And you will be placed right in the middle. So here I show you what your chances are surviving are based on previous data, and then let you say, oh, you can go back and change your mind, or you can just proceed away. So after this comes to the match, you sadly met your fate to the hands of Elizabeth Harman. We can see here what other soldiers died on the battle. You yourself, you took a white pawn, it's great, but then later, shortly afterwards, were defeated by a white bishop. So this was a nice sort of fun spin I wanted to play on this data set. So this was the existing work of understanding the survival rates for different chess pieces, but I put on this extra layer of, hey, let's put you in that scenario and see with some data how you feel about continuing in this game. And I let you go back and have you play different games, be whatever you want to be in terms of a piece and whichever team you want to be on. So that was quite a lot of me just sort of showing some enjoyment or some fun to have with Tableau, because you can create these user experiences now as well using the interactivity of the tool. So what I learned from this process was that all my interests, all my passions, all these things of enjoyment really led to my best work, the things that I felt most happy about and most satisfied with. I really put everything I had into these projects and ended up putting in my best work, which is really was the secret I discovered. So this then leads on with like, if there's a place to do your best work, it's got to be here, right? So this is Iron Viz. So this is the biggest data viz competition in the world. It's run by Tableau once a year. You get the chance to win not enormous amounts of money, but most importantly, the glory of being a data viz champion. But the process itself is kind of a bit convoluted, so I'll go through this now. So how it works is you have a feeder competition, so you'll have a big announcement of a type of theme that they want visualizations on. You have about a month, you'll go away and you'll put together your best visualization about this topic, which will then go on to judges. These judges will then go and rate and review your work for about a month before then drilling down to top 10 entries. Of those top 10, the top three will go on to the final, where you have about 3 weeks, I would say. We had 3 weeks, some people have had less, about 3 weeks to say, here's your data set, go and build a viz, and then then you can rebuild in 20 minutes for the final. So quite a bit to go through, but we're going to start here. We're going to start with a feeder and how you can really equip yourself to be really well prepared to do the best in this feeder to get through into that top 10 and hopefully the final. So if based on what I've just said, I think if you're going to pick something for your feeder topic, you'll get the theme. You'll get a theme, say it could be something like arts, which was last year, or joy or health. But in that, you've got to find a topic or a story that's really sort of sparks your own interests, your own passions that you find take great enjoyment to do. Because realistically, if this is going to be about a month's worth of work you're going to put in, this will really help you push past some of the difficult points in building out those visualizations. Really help keep you motivated to carry on to the end. And I will show you my 2 visualizations that I put forward for the feeder. So these were my 2 visualizations. So the one on the left was about joy in 2021, and the one on the right was about the arts in last year, or this year. So you can probably look at these and think the one on the left, it doesn't look very joyful. And you were right, it doesn't look very joyful at all. And even when you learn a bit more about it, it still doesn't get that much more joyful. So this is about Billy Joel's "We Didn't Start the Fire." This was where I heard the song and then recognized some of the lyrics made sense to what was going on in the news. So there was a lyric, "Trouble in the Suez." And this, at the time, this was when we had the Suez Canal that had a transporter ship, cargo ship was jackknifed in the canal, preventing any ships from traveling. So this then sort of sparked an idea for me to create this visualization. But I was really inspired by things I'd seen to create quite a fun, more realistic data visualization. So I'd seen an Instagram account where they were sharing real life photos and putting them to data visualization. So I thought this could be fun. I want to try this, and it didn't do well. It didn't get me into the top 10 or anything like that, but I still really enjoyed this process. This was the first time for me doing a photo shoot for a viz. How I was in my parents' lounge taking pictures of a fireplace and then making the sparks from the fire and then encapsulating those little images to make these little flames you see in the visualization here. So in a sense, it didn't get me to the final, but it was, for me, it was a really enjoyable thing to do. And at the end of the day, regardless of what happens in the competition, it's going to form part of my overall portfolio. And I would happily talk about this with anybody who was interested in it. So I really enjoyed making it, regardless of how it did. But saying that, if you want to do better, I'm here to tell you that on the right, I managed to get it and get it okay. But again, it was still holding to some of these principles. So on the right, we would ask about arts, and arts for me, I thought immediately like, oh, art galleries, what am I going to do for that? And this idea has sort of been hanging around for a little while with me, of these pictures we had from a game called Drawful 2, where you are given a prompt, you have to draw what you think it is, and then other people have to guess it. And it seemed like a really fun game, and I thought, well, I could try and recreate that in Tableau. I mean, that's kind of art. So I really wasn't sure whether this was going to tie into the theme or not, but I just kind of went with it because it was something I wanted to do. But thankfully, this was more on the line of art than there was with Joy. But there was times in this visualization when things weren't working. I was having issues with certain interactivity in it, and it nearly got canned. It nearly didn't happen, but because I had this enjoyment of like wanting to see this through, this sort of passion to get this thing out there for everyone to see, I pushed through that. I really stuck with it. I mean, it must have been broken for 2 or 3 days before I found the answer of how to fix it. So I really hung in there because I enjoyed what I was making here. And so the fact is, these are the factors that your judges are going to score you on. This is going to determine how you get into that top 10 and that top 3. So the rest is that they're going to score you on design, storytelling, and analysis. And for me, these terms are a bit like, what does that really mean? A bit more than it. I mean, I can design something really like fantastic looking, but it's not, it wouldn't win because it's not really storytelling or analysis involved. So I've tried to sort of take a step back and think of this from a different angle. So I feel like if you tell it from a data viz point of view, this gets quite confusing, quite cumbersome. But if we were to step it back and think, hey, if you were just explaining this topic to a group of friends at a bar or something, how would you go about telling that story or that topic to them? I mean, you wouldn't think, oh yeah, what's the design going to look like? How's analysis? You would think more simple terms. You would think, oh, I just want them to have something that's really easy for them to understand, something for them to follow along. And I really want them to follow along. I want to keep them hooked. They want to know what happens next in terms of telling my story. And I've also got to, in this case, back it up with facts. It can't just be some sort of rumor mill I'm showing out. So this is all about what I think to design, storytelling, analysis could really be. It's just putting together a visualization that those judges can understand, keeps them interested, wanting to learn more, and is really insightful in terms of the facts it shares as well. So I want to spend a bit of time on storytelling. I feel that this is the one to get. So once you have a story sort of set out, it all kind of falls into place. And we often think of like, what's that message going to be for your audience? What those judges are going to take away? What do you want them to know at the end of it? You can't just take them through all this data and that would be it. But so when we think about data visualization and storytelling, they're kind of different things. And I only recently thought of this was, hey, data visualization is all about doing things quicker. So we take our table of numbers and we convert it into a bar chart. This way we can see the highest, we see the lowest, all ordered nicely. It's very quick for me to pull out some insights here versus just looking at the numbers. But if we look at what they do in films, it's quite different. So storytelling in films, if you look at remember the film Titanic with Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet? It's a story about a boat that sinks. It's got a lot of money, a lot of Oscars, a lot of awards, but it's 3 hours long. This is quite an incredibly long time. But what if I say that you can watch this film in just a few seconds? And we can, thanks to the power of YouTube. So what we've done here is turn quite what is a tragic film into almost just a bit of comedy at the end of the day. And what I would say to this is that faster does not always mean is that more effective in this case. So storytellings, they do take their time, but what they're doing here in the case of Titanic, they're telling you this romance tale. They're really getting you invested in these two characters and these two humans. And then tragic heartbreak at the end, and sadness, and they've really got you by emotion. And so this is what makes a message stick. So more emotion involved makes for a more memorable story. I'll give you another example of this. So I'm going to throw up some dates here. Oh, there they go. There they are. So I'm going to throw up some dates. So these dates will mean something to you, I'm sure. So like 9/11, we can remember the tragedy, remember the heartfelt and like the horror of it all. Going back to March 2020, remember like what a strange time it was. There's this virus on the loose. We've all got to stay at home. What are we doing? We're watching the news. Weird emotional time, like of fear. But hopefully something more joyful, like times of your birthday, celebrating with friends. Those are more joyful times that we can remember with these dates. So just a few dates can trigger quite a few different emotions within you. And we all have like a memories are tied to these kind of events as well because of those emotions. Another example was what I did in my Iron Viz final. So in this case, we were showing youth literacy 20 years ago. So here I was at the start, I was expressing how different the world is if you're illiterate. So sharing off, hey, putting this expression saying that you can't read and write, you're going to have reduced opportunities in work and in education, and that you're going to really struggle to carry on in the future. I was trying to get it more in a relatable term than just a phrase, illiterate. Then going on to talk about the gender divide. So if you're a woman, you're much more likely to be illiterate than if you were a man. And this is really sort of trying to trigger into people's emotions because they will be able to identify with a predominant woman figure in their life, be it a mother, be it a sister, be it a wife, be it themselves. They think what the world could be like for that person just because they're a woman or not. So really trying to, again, tap into this emotion. And lastly, I talked about these human stories. So trying to get my audience to relate with how these different human lives have been impacted by changing literacy rates. So for example, with Tanvi, normally she would just grow up in a rural village, have a pretty small, was able to then go on to be educated, get a job and bring money home to the family, the difference that made to not just her, but actually the economy as well. Okay, so we talked a lot about storytelling in general, but how you want to construct your story. It's about how much data you want to put down for your audience and for those judges. So I kind of see it like this, that one data point kind of feels like a bit of an insight, like here are the top 10 products they're selling at the moment. If you do bring another data point in and say, here are the top 10 products that have been sold the most since COVID times, you can sort of see this a bit of like a cause and effect. So like if this happens, then this will happen. But if you do 3 or more, I kind of feel you're into that storytelling realm of where you can move from data point to data point, trying to connect your audience along the way with a bit of emotion. And then at the end, having that takeaway message for those judges as well. So the example I had in interpreting art, so this visualization you had started off by filling out that quiz of what you thought those images were going to be. And afterwards, you then got to the stage of finding your answers out. So I put together data here that was relevant to those audience members, relevant to you, the user, how you put it out. So highlighted here in blue. I was then using, I couldn't believe this got through into the final, this comic strip almost of explaining these 2 characters talking through the data in more simple terms, but also kind of acting as a bridge between understanding the data, the results itself, and then dropping into the next set of analysis that I wanted to do. So I'm using these integrals as sort of a guide through the data, so it was quite a sort of smooth change from one data set to another. And then at the end, I was actually reinforcing that message. So I've given you some stats here about how you performed in the quiz, like no one agreed with your results, but actually 2/3 of people agreed with that result. And then reinforcing my message was that we're all unique in the way we think. There's not many people that are going to exactly align with how we answer this quiz, but at least one person will. So there was that to sort of share as my end message. Okay, we talked a lot about analysis and design. Well, no, we talked a lot about storytelling. I wanted to just sort of touch on analysis and design. So analysis is all about asking these right questions, those facts that you want to draw in. So understanding from your data set, the story you're telling, what is important, why is this important for my audience, being quite critical of the data, try and think of how your judge would think of, here's a fact, what caused that, why did it happen, are people better or worse off because of this? So really being quite critical and asking these quite direct questions of the data can help try and bring out more of the story. That's going to be what the important questions your judges are going to ask for as well. So in this viz about the interpreting art again, so you've filled out that quiz, your judges want to know, so after you fill out a quiz, obviously you want to know, well, how did I do? I'll give you the answers straight away. You don't have to hunt for it, it's right there, you've got 2 right. Then I show them the results here of how people did, how they did in the quiz, and so comes to this conclusion that not many people get full marks, and begging the question, why do we find it so challenging in this case? And then at the end, again, reinforcing that point, but sort of saying, what, so I've taken this judge on a journey, what does it all mean? What does it all mean for them? So, and on design, I feel like this is part of that, trying to make it easy for them to understand, trying to make sure that they have that quite simple path to follow through your work, so not having to jump around, sort of going back, or there's any confusion in this. And I generally find there's the 2 main paths is sort of going from like a big picture view to like the individual detail or the individual story, or you can flip it and then go from an individual person's kind of view and then bubble it up to a bigger picture kind of issue. And in this viz, this is how it worked. It worked from that big picture of this is how you did, and then drill down slowly through different layers of analysis to then your individual results as well, compared to everyone else's. So really going from top to bottom, taking that judge through this work. So for this feeder, I really feel that this is like, again, your interests, your passions, what you find enjoyable, really lean into this idea of design, storytelling, and analysis. So your interest can really help you trigger those questions to really help you bring out some really important analysis. If you're interested in a topic, you are way ahead of your audience that don't know anything about it. So you can really bring that to your audience to try and educate them on this topic. Your passion's all about, I suppose, adding that bit of emotion, the bit that you enjoy, those emotions that you have, to try and pass that on in terms of storytelling for your audience. And design, it can be sort of enjoyable, but it's also just enabling it to be easy for them to understand as well. So I kind of feel like these are all interlinked, and if you start with your interests, your passions, and what you enjoy, you'll have a really good footing to make a good Iron Viz submission. So hopefully this has all gone well and you've made it to the final, this very daunting scene in Vegas where you're on a stage. So here it all changes, because now you're having, in this case, you're having to present to this audience. You're not just passing your viz over to a judge, you've now got to talk about it on stage in front of everybody else. So this really led to a change in how I presented my work. So in the feeder, you can see it's this sort of typical like long form kind of view. It's very easy for a judge to go from top to bottom, and they'll go through it however quickly they want to. But in the final, it's different. I'm the one who's in control here. I'm controlling the content, what's being seen on screen. So this kind of led to this more slide sort of technique, and it's all about control. So understanding that I'm going to be controlling what's seen on screen at any moment. So given that power, I've got to use it responsibly. I'll give you another example of this. So again, about control, about how the user sees things and I see things. So I could have shown either sort of the typical dashboard, or I could have used one of these slides in this case. So the issue here with this dashboard is there's a lot going on, and there's going to be a lot for you taking on, and you're all going to look at it in slightly different ways. And the problem is I'm not going to be able to talk through it quicker than your eyes can see it. So we can use a little bit of eye tracking technology. So there's a little tool called VAS by 3M that you can use, and it will use a bit of deep learning to simulate how an audience would view your work. So here the heat map shows those more visually attracting areas. And the thing to pick up here is there's a lot. There's a lot going on here for a few seconds. So many different places they could be in the different blobs will indicate where they could be. So I could be talking up here, but my audience has already progressed to different parts of this map. Say I want to know about this. Whereas in the final build, I mean, it's just a straightforward, there's not too much to look at. There's more, I'm going to show you this, you're going to consume it, and then we're going to go on to the next thing. But it's quite easy for my audience to all going to look at the same thing. And that's a clue in this sort of other view about hotspots. So you can see many different hotspots where my audience could be looking in the dashboard on the left in the first few seconds. Whereas over here, there's not much more. There's the title, and then there's the actual visualization of the people. So really making it quite straightforward for us to all be on the same page at the same time when viewing this work. So I want to give you a quick demo of how this technique comes out, because not many people had seen this before. So I'm going to go over on Tableau Public quickly. I'll show you. So this is my final build for Iron Viz, and this is a tutorial of how to build out these presentations. So this tutorial is available. It's on Tableau Public. It's all downloadable. Thank you to Adamiko again for reviewing this work. But if you click here, you will go to a Google Drive, which has everything there. So all the data sets, all the images, everything that you can need to rebuild this tutorial. And I'm going to show you this quickly now. So if I'm in Tableau, Tableau Public, Tableau Desktop, and I go connect to data, and I go and connect to a text file. So I've opened up the demo data sets that come with this. So there's this one called slide index, which I'm going to pick. I'm going to go open. So slide index, really simple data set. So it's just one column of data from 1 to the number of slides you have in your presentation. We're only going to just do the first 3, just so you are aware of this technique. So in here, I'm going to move this column slide. I'm going to change that to a dimension. Okay. Now, how this works is it uses the tech called background images, which is actually quite an old feature. It was there when I started in version 8. So how we need to make this work is we need a scatter plot. So we're going to build what you like, a fake scatter plot, so I can show a background image on it. So if I just make, let's say something called column, and I'm going to go for 2, so just the number 2, and pull this onto my sheet, and there it is. So I've got 2 there. If I duplicate this and then edit it, I'll call this row. Okay, and I'll put that on the sheet. So I've got a scatter plot, really rubbish scatter plot, and it's going to get worse. So I'm going to edit the axis between 0 and 1, and 0 and 1. Okay, so we've got a scatter plot that's got nothing on it. Now what I'm going to do is bring in those background images, bring in those slides to show. So if I go to map, background images, and go to slide index, that data set we brought in. So now I can add an image to my sheet. So I'm going to add the image. I'm going to browse. I'm going to find slide 1. And then then you have to set the X and Y fields of where this image is going to span. So if I do it between 0 and 1 and 0 and 1, and then click apply. So here we go. We've got an image now in Tableau. But the option is I'm going to need to switch between different images. So how we do that is by doing a few options. So under options, there's a section here called only show when. If we go add and go on slides, and I click 1. So this is going to only show this when slide is 1, and it's going to disappear. And how you fix this is by pulling slide onto detail. So that's there, that knows that. But we will need to be able to change these slides based on some options that we're going to pass the users. We're going to use a parameter to help us change the different slides. So what I'll do is I'll go to my parameter, I'll go to slide and go and create a parameter, slide parameter, which is fine. So not to however many I want, which is good. I'm now going to go and create a calculated field. Say slide parameter equals slide. This slide filter. Bring this onto my filter, and I'm going to click true. I'm going to show parameter. So I've got slide parameter 1, which is working. If I was to switch to the other ones, it won't work. So I'm going to go back. I'm just going to add these background images as well. So I'm going to add background image for slide 2. Actually, not 1, not 1. Let me show when slide is 2. I'm just going to do the same again for slide 3. There we go. So slide 3, go okay. So if I change this, yes, you'll now see these different slides come through. Okay, so I'm going to remove these headers for row and column, and now we're going to move this into a dashboard. So go on to dashboard, I'm going to delete the phone layout, change to a fixed size, and go PowerPoint. In this case, because this is the same size as these images. So sheet 1, I'm going to float on there. So floating just means it doesn't come with the padding in this case. So I can hide this title, and I'm going to move this to 0, 0. So span the entire dashboard. So move to 0, 0, and make this 1600 by 900. Okay, so now that spans the entire view. I'm going to change this slide parameter to a slider just so it's a bit easier to use. I'm going to move it down here. So you will notice this keeps coming up, which is the map options. So if I was to scroll in and out, you don't want this. You don't want this for your audience. So what we need to do is disable these map options. So if I go down to map, go to map options, I can then untick layer control, view toolbar, and allow pan and zoom. Click off that, and now when I scroll, that works. Okay, so this is great. So we've got a dashboard now that is showing slides like it was a slide presentation, which is great. But we need some data. The whole point of this and using Tableau is to bring the data to my audience. So what I'm going to do is just show you bringing some data in quite quickly. So I've got a sample data set. It's a really boring data set, so nothing to get excited about. So it's just a year and a metric. So we have a simple line chart here. Dashboard 2, and this, I can now bring the sheet in. So if I go and float the sheet on here, you probably know what the issue is here, that I only want to show it on this sheet, but if I was to scroll back, it's still going to stay there. I really don't want that. So if I go to sheet 2, I'm going to use a technique called a sheet selector. So I'm going to say only show this sheet when this parameter is equals 3. So only show that chart when it's on slide 3. Show chart. I'm going to pull it onto here. So in this case, so there's true, but I'll show you how there's a new feature that came out there. So this doesn't quite work anymore. So if you tick true, and then I would scroll back, it still stays. And the reason that is, I think my mouse has run out of battery. This is that's a panic and all. Hold on. What a climax, eh? So, right. This always have a spare keyboard and mouse on hand. Right, so we're back. Okay, so where was I? So sheet 2. So this is showing on slide parameter 2. This is because this sheet. So if I go back to my filter, the issues that's happening here is switched over to false, which I didn't want. So the way to get around this is to use a custom value list and go true. Oh. And type in true. Okay. Apply. Okay. And now it's gone. So now that sheet has gone, you will see that this sheet title still appears and still persists, whether the sheet is there or not. There's no real way to get around this other than just hiding the title. And so if you wanted to bring in that title, you would have to build this out as another sheet and bring it in using the same sort of filtering technique. But this is it. This is the sort of technique in a nutshell. So I've been able to bring in some different images using Tableau. Using Tableau background images, I've then been able to put my data set on top of the work as well. So I can now head on back. So this, as I say, this tutorial is available for you to download and use. Please do use it. It's interesting to see where this will go. So I've got the QR code here for you to go, and I'll take you straight to that visualization. And again, thanks to Adam for reviewing this. But I wanted to also share, so they had this data stories technique that came out at Tableau conference. They gave you the example of Feeding America here, where they have a dashboard of the US, and then they have this sort of text description that's been generated by Tableau as well. And I feel like this could be a really effective combination of these two. So for example, if you have to go and build together weekly slide decks, or PowerPoint decks, or monthly PowerPoint decks, and using that data, so you could effectively go and now build the slides in put those slides into Tableau with the data refreshing, and also Tableau providing a bit of the commentary as well. So this could be a real good saving of time from having to do this manually in PowerPoint in the future, which I think could be really interesting to see. So, I mean, this is me summing up. So in terms of conquering Iron Viz, I think this is where to focus your efforts. So follow those interests, follow those passions and what you enjoy. At the end of the day, this is a piece of work that's going to be part of your portfolio, and you can really speak to the same truth of this is going to be your best work that you will do. Again, remember back to those stories and storytelling, and try and trigger an emotion with your audience. It doesn't always have to be sadness. I mean, this can always be something fun, something that they enjoy, something that's going to stand out to those judges. And then lastly, is sort of considering how you're delivering your work. What's the best way you're going to deliver it to it? Is your judge going to be viewing it on alone, or are they going to be amongst many people being presented to? So think about how you want to deliver that work in your story as well. That about wraps it up for me. Thank you for that. Sorry about the drama of losing a mouse, but yeah, if you want to carry on the conversation, please, there's a QR code which take you to all of my social links. I'm around on Twitter, LinkedIn, Tableau Public, GitHub, Instagram, and I've even started YouTube. I don't even have a channel ID. I'm so young in the game, but if you search for Will Sutton Iron Viz montage, you will find me, and I will be uploading some more Iron Viz related content there. And also, if you ever need any support for any data analysis projects, please let us know at the information lab. We'd be more than happy to help. That's it. Any questions, just let me know.
Very cool, Will. That was such an awesome backstory, and thanks for the insights there. That's some pretty unique use of Tableau that I don't think too many people have seen, like you mentioned. So yeah, super excited to share.
Thank you.
Yeah, if there's any questions from the broader group on anything, just feel free to take yourself off mute and ask away.
I just have a question. Hi, Will. Hi, everyone. About like, is there something that surprised you in the, I'm thinking about the final, like you have a process where you have 3 weeks to think about like your viz but then you only have 20 minutes to produce it. And sometimes there are things that when you have time, it's possible, but in 20 minutes, like the calculations take too long, etc. Are there certain things that you thought, actually, I have to give up this idea? Or how did it impact your decisions?
Yeah, I have a lot on that. I didn't, I didn't want to share too much at this stage, but uh, let me go back to the actual final viz. So there was parts in this where you're going to be against a time limit. So in this technique, I knew for the last section here, this is a real like strong example of when I had to really came against that issue. So you do get quicker when you practice rebuilding this, but in this case, so you would typically build this as a map. You would have this map here, and then you would float these other sheets on top here, these individual charts. But for Iron Viz, there wasn't going to be enough time, so you're always going to be counted based on time, based on number of sheets, number of formats, number of calculations you do. So the secret here I was using Tableau Prep to build out map layers here to make this all one sheet. So this all became one data sets and visualization I could build quite quickly compared to make another sheet, pull it onto the viz, make another sheet, pull it onto the viz in that case. So I used Tableau Prep to get this to work, but no, there's definitely stuff here that I struggled with time-wise. I think certainly I didn't even appreciate the actual presenting time was only 4 minutes, rather than I thought it was longer. So you may notice that there's quite a lot of text in here that I was going to talk through, and no time on the day. So I think there are times when you come to things that are feel too cumbersome to build, but then you use either prep or you think of some creative solution to get around it in these cases. So yeah, or you have to make a compromise in some way. So example, like all this text is just image. I mean, I know Kimberly went and put the text in herself, so it's much easier to have on like a screen reader or something. So yeah, so there's compromises here and there.
Thank you. Very enlightening.
Will, do you have a video or maybe something on your YouTube channel that shows that use case of how you use prep and put that together in a map layer?
I do. Well, I probably could put something together, but I know I spoke at the Tableau Prep user group, and it shares that prep flow as well. It is mental. I'll be honest. It is bad. It's one of those things you look back on and think, oh, what have I done here? But no, I can certainly put together like a tutorial on like how you would go about doing this. But I think one of my YouTube videos does talk through this. I think so I've been releasing some recently, and we did talk through this about how these points appear in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah, that's very cool. Are there any other questions from the group? Great. Well, Will, thanks so much for taking the time. I know it's late over in the UK, so really appreciate you staying after hours and talking to us today. And yeah, such a great presentation. I did record the presentation, and we'll post a link to it on the LinkedIn page for the Seattle Tableau user group. Or you can go to the Tableau YouTube account and you can search through all the user groups and find the videos there. So thanks everyone for attending. Great to see you all. We'll have more information on our next meeting soon. Still TBD on what the content will be, but we're working hard on putting something together, and I look forward to seeing you when that's released. All right. Thanks everyone. See ya.
Bye.